Over the past 80 years, superheroes have become so firmly rooted in pop culture that they have literally become members of our families. How did they do it? Who created the first superhero and why? How did comic book movies, after decades of failures, end up at the height of fame, turning from this
Shazam!
into this?
It's time you stand.
Welcome to About Movies. Today, we are going to reveal the secret of the popularity of superheroes. Let's talk about what deep meanings and references lie behind the bright costumes and spectacular special effects, and how September 11th is connected with movie comics. But before that, we want you to click on the subscription button and the bell to always be aware of all the events in the world of cinema. Subscribe, and we start. To understand everything, first of all, you should imagine that you live in the late 30s, at the border of two world wars during the time of Holocaust, nuclear threats, rampant crime, and gangster skirmishes. You, like the rest of society, are scared and feel the constant tension, having the need for protection. And one day, two Americans who for all their youth were shy geeks and suffered from mockery of their peers came up with a character who would become their powerful alter ego in this difficult time. This man burns through the walls with his eyes and always rushes to the aid of those who are in trouble. His name is Superman. Appearing in 1938 and inspiring people, the first superhero in history became a breath of fresh air. These people then were in great need of an almighty hero, looking at whom one could believe that all difficulties were surmountable. Superman gained great popularity. After him, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Iron Man appeared one by one. They gave hope, protected humanity, and saved it at least in the pages of comics. In 1943, the Superman comic books were even given to soldiers with their military rations to raise the morale of people fighting abroad. Marvel's Captain America was purposefully designed to attract young guys to the war against Nazi Germany, and we must say that this plan worked. The plots of superhero comics have always been a reflection of modern realities. The main topics concerning humanity, directly or indirectly revealed in the seemingly children's stories. Even though the action took place in alternate universes, it wasn't hard to associate yourself with superheroes and sympathize with their problems. But for all the popularity of comics, superhero movies have long been in a deplorable state. Yes, the big break was Richard Donner's Superman, the first superhero blockbuster released in the 70s. However, together with Burton's Batman, they were rather an exception among the unsuccessful attempts to bring stories about superheroes to the screens. The main reason for successful attempts to make movies based on comics was the limited special effects of those times, which made it impossible to plausibly show the superpowers of the characters on the screen. Nowadays, Superman suspended on a rope and the silly names of superhero devices look very funny and even absurd.
Batmobile to airport. Prepare Batcopter for immediate takeoff.
Drop bat ladder. Out batarang and bat rope.
But even those days, they did not cause much delight. Neither the Punisher, who had little in common with the original source, nor the dull Captain America did not make a proper impression on the viewer. What's more, after the big failure of the Howard the Duck comedy, the head of Universal resigned. The producers did not even dare to release the Fantastic Four. It was so terrible. The final nail in the coffin of the future of superhero movies was hammered down by Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, which can rightly be considered one of the worst films in history. The 80s and 90s were still not a favorable time for superheroes.
All right, everyone, chill.
The viewer was quite satisfied with the classic action heroes, although they cannot fly, but still very cool guys. But everything was changed dramatically with the advent of the 21st century. Comic book movies gradually gained popularity and won the championship in the world box office. Superheroes have become the main idols of young people. So what is the reason? First, technology finally allowed producers to shoot bright action so the superheroes do not look ridiculous. And secondly, again, as in the distant 30s and 40s, there were serious topics concerning society. At this time, not comics, but movies were ready to talk with the audience about it. The first successful project was X-Men, The film about mutants rejected by society, born with superpowers, was some kind of allegory. It raised the current problem of discrimination, racism, and homophobia. Director Bryan Singer specifically rejected the bright costumes and color scheme so that the movie would not be seen as a children's story.
You actually go outside in these things? What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
He did not focus on special effects, but on the drama of the story. And on September 11, 2001, a tragedy happened. It shocked not only American society, but the entire world. And those tough guys from action movies lost their credibility, not coping with the threats of the 21st century. Then it was time for the superheroes. 6 months after the terrorist attack, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man was released. The friendly neighbor was secretly entrusted with the difficult task of supporting the sense of patriotism of civilians and uniting them, giving hope that any danger can be overcome.
Remember, with great power comes great responsibility.
In the future, comic book movies will often make visual references to September 11th, showing destroyed skyscrapers, explosions, and panic among the citizens. But in the new stories, the good will win over evil. Just like the comic books before that, superhero movies help people find an outlet in the most difficult times.
It's okay, your baby's fine.
Oh, my baby. God bless you, Spider-Man. Bless you.
After the X-Men, the studios decided to attract serious authors to work on superhero movies. The dramatic action film about the Hulk was directed by Oscar-winning director Ang Lee. The Fantastic Four was entrusted to the co-author of Twin Peaks' Mark Frost, and Christopher Nolan, previously known for the thriller Memento, shot the dark trilogy about Batman. There was also a reflection on the topic of terrorism in Nolan's movie. The Dark Knight, like its contemporaries, was concerned about the price of security. Deciding whether to use the technology to spy on all the inhabitants of Gotham, Batman referred to the real law, Patriot Act, which gave the right to the US intelligence agencies to listen to phone conversations of citizens.
I've got to find this man, Lucius.
At what cost?
The database is null key encrypted. It can only be accessed by one person.
This is too much power for one person.
That's why I gave it to you.
The Dark Knight, with its ambiguous protagonist, showed the audience a different side of the comic book movies and became the first superhero film to gross more than $1 billion worldwide. The genre proved its prospects again when Heath Ledger, who played Joker in the same film, became the first actor to win an Oscar for playing a comic book character.
And why do you want to kill me?
I don't want to kill you. What would I do without you? Go back to ripping off mob dealers? No. You complete me.
Heath, with his Joker, became one of the most charming villains in the history of comic book movies. A few years later, Marvel got its own bad guy with whom people love even more than some superheroes. We're talking, of course, about Tom Hiddleston and his character, Loki. However, he did not receive an Oscar, but he gained an army of fans around the world. By the way, if you also like him as an actor, or you are fond of his characters, click on the pop-up card and you will find a video with a detailed analysis of the biography of this undoubtedly talented actor and his star role. Click on the place the arrow points right now. It's worth your time, and it's also free. The year 2008 was a turning point in the history of the development of superhero movies. The Dark Knight was followed by Iron Man, who launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He also mentioned sensitive topics, talking about the uncontrolled growth of weapons and American military dominance in the Middle East. At the same time, Marvel took a slightly different path than Nolan with his Dark Batman, and even taking into account the important topics raised, chose a more optimistic presentation with humor and bright color correction.
A little ostentatious, don't you think?
What was I thinking? You're usually so discreet.
Tell you what, throw a little hot rod red in there.
Yes, that should help you keep a low profile.
Gradually, Marvel developed the perfect formula for success, and humor was one of its components.
And I'd like to know how Loki used it to turn two of the sharpest men I know into his personal flying monkeys.
Monkeys? I do not understand.
I do.
For example, in The Avengers, a one-line joke or gag appeared on average every 49 seconds.
Loki is beyond reason, but he is of Asgard, and he is my brother.
He killed 80 people in 2 days.
He's adopted.
How does Fury even see these?
He turns. When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. Your work on anti-electron collisions is unparalleled, and I'm a huge fan of the way you lose control and turn into an enormous green rage monster.
Thanks.
In addition to revealing the urgency of the problems, the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe was ensured by a well-thought-out strategy. With the help of focus groups and surveys, the preferences of adolescents were identified, and the hearts of the adult audience were captured thanks to pop cultural references and the comedic component. The reason for the undying interest in superheroics, in addition to all the points listed above, is that superheroes are flexible characters that can be adapted to almost any modern reality. The indestructibility and omnipotence of the character allows you to put it in absolutely any setting, whether it's a dark city, a parallel world of magicians, a quantum dimension, or even outer space. For example, Marvel often experiments with genres, due to which they bring variety to the line of their films, as well as expand the audience. A superhero can handle any genre. Guardians of the Galaxy is a space opera. Captain America: The Winter Soldier is a spy thriller. Ant-Man is a heist movie. Spider-Man is a teen rom-com. And Thor: Ragnarok is a buddy movie.
Hulk like fire, Thor like water.
Well, kind of both like fire.
DC saw the success of Marvel, also began to experiment, changing the mood of the films to a more optimistic one, and released the fabulous epic Aquaman and the soulful family comedy Shazam. And the Fox studio began a series of bold experiments with an age rating of A, shooting for an adult audience a cruel but deeply personal Western Logan and a reckless Deadpool who mocks superheroes, who loves to break the fourth wall.
Oh, hello. I know, right? Whose balls did I have to fondle to get my very own movie? I can't tell you, but it does rhyme with Pulverine.
Superheroes stay organic not only in blockbusters but also in low-budget projects. For example, in the horror movie Brightburn. It is about the childhood of a boy with superpowers, similar to Superman, who chose the dark side. Gradually, the superhero successfully settled on the small screens. There is also a large selection of genres and a modern noir about violence in relationships and PTSD, and a radical drama about accepting death, which pretends to be a sitcom, and science fiction about time and space travel. If 20 years ago they told us that the anti-hero would have a solo series, we would probably be very surprised and maybe not believe it. But Marvel managed to make Loki a deep character, the one that you almost immediately begin to empathize with. Of course, we would also like to mention the harsh satire on comics with references to the real world.
You hurt somebody!
We need rules, okay? Rule number 1, no using it on living things. Rule number 2, you can't use it when you're angry. That's it. Rule number 3, I don't think we should be using it in public or telling anybody about it.
Someone will say that the Boys TV series discredits the bright image of a superhero, but the series essentially performs the same function as the classic superhero movie. Behind the black humor and irony, all the same problems of modern society are hidden. Here, superheroes also find their own answers to questions about equality, opposition to total state control, and homophobia. They just do it in a little bit different manner than we're used to. Although most superheroes are still white heterosexual men, the situation slowly began to change in the 2010s. For many years, the producers did not believe that a film in which a woman would play the main role could find success. Other examples were the disastrous failures at the box office. For example, Supergirl, which was called a nondescript analog of Superman, or the super-sexualized Catwoman and the super-neutral Elektra. Although the creative failures of these movies did not depend on the gender of the main characters, it took 12 years for a new solo film about a female superhero to be released. It was Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins, one of the best projects of the DC universe. The story of the Amazon princess kept the balance between action, drama, and comedy, and introduced a multifaceted heroine, vulnerable and naive, stubborn and fearless. The diversity of genders and races in the film reflects modern realities and adds more authenticity to the picture. The fears of movie companies that films with a protagonist of non-European appearance will not be accepted by a wide audience destroyed Ryan Coogler's Black Panther, which is interesting to viewers from all over the world and brought Marvel more than $1 billion.
To turn our backs on the rest of the world. We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more. I cannot stay here with you.
But a rather slow movement towards inclusion can be considered simply an attempt to please progressive viewers and at the same time maintain the trust of a conservative audience. For example, in the Avengers Endgame, the first LGBT character appeared, and it was played by the director of the film, Joe Russo. However, his hero was only episodic and had nothing to do with the superheroes.
It's the first time in 5 years, and, I'm sitting there at dinner. I didn't even know what to talk about.
A few years later, Marvel for the first time presented in its cinematic universe a gay superhero. It's Phastos from Eternals. Epic comic book movies are fantastic attractions that offer an escape from the real world to the beautiful Wakanda, which is reigned by the King T'Challa. They give us the opportunity to see the perfect island of Themyscira through the eyes of Diana Prince. Witness the imitatable dance of Peter Quill on another planet. In the 21st century, thanks to superhero movies, a fascinating visual series, and well-told stories, the audience believed that a person can not only fly like Superman, but also be a real hero, even if he does not have superpowers. And it doesn't matter who is on the screen, a billionaire, genius, playboy, philanthropist,
Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Or a simple schoolboy who wants to protect citizens from criminals. The main thing is that in superhero movies, we get to know ourselves and our problems. By the way, in the previous video, we have already told the full story of the development of one of the most popular superheroes in history, Spider-Man. If you click on this icon that appeared on your screen, you will find out how a friendly neighbor was created, because of what his creators quarreled and cut ties, how films about Spidey were created, and other different interesting facts. Click the icon and watch. That's all for today. It was about movies. Like this video and see you very soon. Bye-bye.